Hello, welcome to another day of Northanger Abbey. I'm not doing a lot today. I'm just doing my work. I'm gonna make dinner tonight so I can eat for the next for the next few days. I gotta make my big dinner. I'm having pot stickers from Trader Joe's. So once again, yes, this is a Trader Joe's ad, and that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing today. I'm reading an interesting script right now, which I can say nothing about. But yeah, just chilling out, doing my thing. Gonna have some lunch. What am I gonna have for lunch? Ooh, very exciting proposition that I get to discover in but a few minutes. In a few short minutes, I will have lunch. Let me try and buy some time. I think tonight, my roommates and I are gonna watch The Love Witch, which is a movie. I haven't told them that yet. So if they're here, that's what my plan is. We've been watching at least a movie together every night for the past probably week, and it's really fun. It's really nice to not, watch movies alone. It's also hard to find movies that we all wanna watch, because you never wanna, like, suggest a bad movie, right? That's my difficulty. I'm going to take off my sweater. It's a little toasty now that I turned the fan off for audio reasons. We watched The Conjuring. The Conjuring is a fun horror movie if you're looking for fun horror movies. It's like just a little too far for me to like fully reach to get the best. Lighting isn't very good either way. Well, with all that being said, let's talk about what happened yesterday. Now, I think that we read 2 chapters yesterday, but I can't remember what happened. Oh, yes. So, Catherine's really excited because her stay has been extended in Bath. And she goes to tell Miss Tilney, and she's like, Miss Tilney, guess what? We're staying for 2 weeks. And Miss Tilney's like, oh, that's a bummer, because I'm actually leaving at the end of this week. And Catherine's like, what? And then Miss Tilney's like, but if you wanted to. And then her dad busts in, and he's like, hey, have you asked her yet? And Miss Tilney's like, I was just about to. He's like, oh, cool, I'll let you get to it. But then he does it anyways. He's like, well, anyways, we're leaving at the end of this week because none of my friends are going to show up. So we were wondering if you wanted to come hang out with us at our house, Northanger Abbey. And Catherine's like, let me tell you, sir, there is nothing more I should desire so much in the whole world than to come hang out at your house with your daughter, who I think is really cool, and your son, who I'm a little bit in love with, but like we're not really sure yet. Not only all of that, but it's also an abbey, and you know that I love old houses. And so she's thrilled. So she goes and talks to Isabella, and Isabella's like, so I just got a letter from John. And Kevin's like, okay, cool, what's up? He's like, well, John was talking about like how you like were just so encouraging to him when he like sort of almost asked you to marry him. And I'm just really excited. And Catherine's like, what do you mean when you sort of almost asked me to marry him? Like, I never gave him any encouragement at all. Never had any idea that he was interested in me. I just thought he was like a cool dude. And Isabella's like, sure, you thought he was a cool dude. Like, I totally get it. Like, of course you didn't see anything happening. Like, I totally understand why you would be saying that. And Catherine's like, no, seriously, I don't like him. And Catherine's like, of course you don't like him. Yeah, I know that we all have our own motives when we like make men like us, but like, it's like, a little rude, but like, it's okay. I would never judge you. And Catherine's like, I seriously had no idea he liked me. I don't like him. I would never want to lead him on. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Isabella's like, yeah, sure. Whatever you say, babe. And then Captain Tilney, Henry Tilney's older brother, comes in. Because like Catherine's been noticing like Isabella's been looking around. I'm so sad. Because Catherine's been noticing like Isabella's been looking around, and they start talking, and they're like really lovey-dovey, but like a perfect match, to be honest, because he's like, I can't look at anything but you. And she's like, don't look at me. What if I turn my face away? He's like, I can still see your cheek, so I can still only look at you. And Catherine's like right there the whole time is like, I think I'm gonna leave. But honestly, aren't you engaged to my brother? And that is where we are at in Northanger Abbey. So let's see what this next chapter brings us. Shiv, you're here. I was just thinking this is the sort of drama that Shiv would love, and here you are indeed. I'll give you a quick recap. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I can't remember where we left off. But anyways, basically what you need to know is that Catherine and Isabella, who started out being really fast friends, Isabella's sort of toxic and will like try to bully Catherine into doing things with her when she's already made plans with other people, will like try to like tell her things, like make up her mind for her about things, but Catherine like takes no bullshit and will not accept that, and we love her for it. And then so Catherine's been having a strengthening friendship with Miss Tilney, the sister of Henry Tilney, the guy that she's going after. And Miss Tilney's really sweet, really nice, really fun. We're okay with Henry. He's not exactly what we want, but he's okay. But anyways, Catherine is going to go spend some time with Miss Tilney at, drumroll please, Northanger Abbey. So we're finally, it only took us, what? I'm doing math. 17 chapters to get to the title, but that's okay. 17 chapters well spent. So let's do this. Northanger Abbey, Volume 2, Chapter 4. A few days passed, and Catherine, though not allowing herself to suspect her friend, could not help watching her closely. The result of her observation was not agreeable. Isabella seemed an altered creature. When she saw her indeed surrounded only by their immediate friends in Edgar's Buildings or Pulteney Street, her change of manners was so trifling that, had it gone no farther, it might have passed unnoticed. A something of languid indifference, or of that boasted absence of mind which Catherine had never heard of before, would occasionally come across her, but had nothing worse appeared, that might only have spared a new grace and inspired a warmer interest. But when Catherine saw her in public admitting Captain Tilney's attentions as readily as they were offered, and allowing him almost an equal share with James in her notice and smiles, the alteration became too positive to be passed over. What could be meant by such unsteady conduct, what her friend could be at, was beyond her comprehension. Captain Tilney is Henry Tilney's older bro, who James and Isabella got engaged. That was an important part that I left out. Isabella was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. If only your father could give us a little more cash. And Catherine's like, I'm sure he gave you all the cash that he could afford to give you. And Isabella's like, no. I know he did. But like, I just feel bad for James because like, it's not really a lot of cash to live on, you know? And Catherine's like, are you speaking badly of my family? And Isabella's like, no. I'm just upset because we can't get married as soon as we wanted to. And you're like, thank you. And then this guy named, she was like, I'm not going to dance this ball all night. And then this guy named Captain Tilney comes up to Catherine and he's like, is your friend Isabella dancing with anyone tonight? And Catherine's like, no, she's not going to dance with anyone. And then Captain Tilney's like, cool. And then he goes over and asks Isabella to dance. And Isabella says yes. And Catherine's like, aren't you engaged to my brother? Funny how I thought you were engaged to my brother. So that's where we're at on that situation. What can you do? Isabella could not be aware of the pain she was inflicting, but it was a degree of willful thoughtlessness which Catherine could not but resent. James was the sufferer. She saw him grave and uneasy, and however careless of his present comfort the woman might be who had given him her heart, to her it was always an object. For poor Captain Tilney, too, she was greatly concerned. Though his looks did not please her, his name was a passport to her goodwill, and she thought with sincere compassion of his approaching disappointment. For, in spite of what she had believed herself to overhear in the pump room, his behavior was so incompatible with a knowledge of Isabella's engagement that she could not, upon reflection, imagine him aware of it. He might be jealous of her brother as a rival, but if more had seemed implied, the fault must have been in her misapprehension. She wished by gentle remonstrance to remind Isabella of her situation and make her aware of this double unkindness. But for remonstrance, which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, either opportunity or comprehension was always against her. If able to suggest a hint, Isabella could never understand it. In this distress, the intended departure of the Tilney family became her chief consolation. Their journey into Gloucestershire was to take place within a few days, and Captain Tilney's removal would at least restore peace to every heart but his own. But Captain Tilney had at present no intention of removing. He was not to be of the party to Northanger. He was to continue at Bath. That's a problem. When Catherine knew this, her resolution was directly made. She spoke to Henry Tilney on the subject, regretting his brother's evident partiality for Miss Thorpe, and entreating him to make known her prior engagement. "My brother does know it," was Henry's answer. "Does he? Then why does he stay here?" Oh my God, poor Catherine, so pure of heart. Everyone else around her is just like, morals? Never heard of them. He made no reply and was beginning to talk of something else, but she eagerly continued, "Why do you not persuade him to go away? The longer he stays, the worse it will be for him at last. Pray advise him for his own sake and for everybody's sake to leave Bath directly. Absence will in time make him comfortable again, but he can have no hope here, and it is only staying to be miserable." Henry smiled and said, "I am sure my brother would not wish to do that." "Then you will persuade him to go away?" "Persuasion is not at command, but pardon me if I cannot even endeavor to persuade him. I have myself told him that Miss Thorpe is engaged. He knows what he is about, and he must be his own master." Again, I'm on the fence. I myself would not date Henry Tilney, but okay. No, he does not know what he is about," cried Catherine. "He does not know the pain he is giving my brother. Not that James has ever told me so, but I am sure he is very uncomfortable, as he should be." "Are you sure it is my brother's doing?" "Yes, very sure." "Is it my brother's attentions to Miss Thorpe, or Miss Thorpe's admission of them that gives the pain?" All right, it's both of their faults. First of all, is not it the same thing? Damn, sometimes if I only just read the next phrase. "I think Mr. Morland would acknowledge a difference. No man is offended by another man's admiration of the woman he loves. It is the woman only who can make it a torment." Catherine blushed for her friend and said, "Isabella is wrong, but I am sure she cannot mean to torment, for she is very much attached to my brother. She has been in love with him ever since they first met, and while my father's consent was uncertain, she fretted herself into almost a fever. You know she must be attached to him." "I understand. She is in love with James and flirts with Frederick." "Oh no, not flirts. A woman in love with a man cannot flirt with another." "It is probable that she will never love so well nor flirt so well as she might do either singly. The gentlemen must each give up a little." After a short pause, Catherine resumed with, "Then you do not believe Isabella so very much attached to my brother?" "I can have no opinion on that subject." But what can your brother mean? If he knows her engagement, what can he mean by his behavior?" You are a very close questioner." "Am I? I only ask what I want to be told." I love her. "But do you only ask what I can be expected to tell?" "Yes, I think so, for you must know your brother's heart." "My brother's heart, as you term it, on the present occasion, I assure you I can only guess at." "Well?" "Well, nay, if it is to be guesswork, let us all guess for ourselves. To be guided by second-hand conjecture is pitiful. The premises are before you. My brother is a lively and perhaps sometimes a thoughtless young man. He has had about a week's acquaintance with your friend, and has known her engagement almost as long as he's known her." "Well," said Catherine after some moments' consideration, "you may be able to guess at your brother's intentions from all this, but I am sure I cannot. But is not your father uncomfortable about it? Does not he want Captain Tilney to go away? Sure, if your father were to speak with him, he would." "My dear Miss Morland," said Henry, "in this amiable solicitude for your brother's comfort, may you not be a little mistaken? Are you not carried a little too far? Would he thank you, either on his account or Miss Thorpe's, for supposing that her affection, or at least her good behavior, is only to be secured by her seeing nothing of Captain Tilney? Is he safe
only in solitude? Or is her heart constant to him only when unsolicited by anyone else? He cannot think this, and you may be sure that he would not have you think it. I will not say, do not be uneasy, because I know that you are so at this moment, but be as little uneasy as you can. You have no doubt of the mutual attachment of your brother and your friend. Depend upon it, therefore, that real jealousy never can exist between them. Depend upon it that no disagreement between them can be of any duration. While, no, their hearts are open to each other, as neither heart can be to you. They know exactly what is required and what can be borne, and you may be certain that one will never tease the other beyond what is known to be pleasant. Perceiving her still to look doubtful and grave, he added, "If Frederick does not leave Bath with us, he will probably remain but a very short time, perhaps only a few days behind us. His leave of absence will soon expire, and he must return to his regiment. And what will then be their acquaintance? The mess room will drink Isabella Thorpe for a fortnight. She will laugh with your brother over poor Tilney's passion for a month." Catherine could contend no longer against comfort. She had resisted its approaches during the whole length of a speech, but it now carried her captive. Henry Tilney must know best. She blamed herself for the extent of her fears, and resolved never to think so seriously on the subject again. Catherine is by far the smartest person in the book, but she just keeps being like, well, but I'm not the smartest person in this book. Like, I can't possibly be the smartest person in this book, right? But unfortunately for her, she is. Let's see. Her resolution was supported by Isabella's behavior in their parting interview. The Thorpes spent the last evening of Catherine's stay in Pulteney Street, and nothing passed between the lovers to excite her uneasiness, or make her quit them in apprehension. James was in excellent spirits, and Isabella most engagingly placid. Her tenderness for her friend seemed rather the first feeling of her heart, but that at such a moment was allowable, and once she gave her lover a flat contradiction, and once she drew back her hand, but Catherine remembered Henry's instructions and placed it all to judicious affection. The embraces, tears, and promises of the parting fair ones may be fancied. I'm gonna yellow. God. I'm gonna do another one. We'll see where we get. Okay. Northanger Abbey, Volume 2, Chapter 5. Mr. and Mrs. Allen were sorry to lose their young friend, whose good humor and cheerfulness had made her a valuable companion, and in the promotion of whose enjoyment their own had been greatly increased. Her happiness in going with Miss Tilney, however, prevented their wishing it otherwise, and as they were to remain only one more week in Bath themselves, her quitting them now would not long be felt. Mr. Allen attended her to Milsom Street, where she was to breakfast, and saw her seated with the kindest welcome among her new friends. But so great was her agitation in finding herself as one of the family, and so fearful was she of not doing exactly what was right, and of not being able to preserve their good opinion, that in the embarrassment of the first 5 minutes she could almost have wished to return with him to Pulteney Street. Miss Tilney's manners and Henry's smile soon did away some of her unpleasant feelings, but she was far from being at ease, nor could the incessant attentions of the general himself entirely reassure her. I'm getting weird feelings about the general, to be honest. You know that I spotted him from the first, so we'll just see. Nay, perverse as it seemed, she doubted whether she might not have felt less had she been less attended to. His anxiety for her comfort, his continual solicitations that she would eat, and his often expressed fears of seeing nothing to her taste, though never in her life before had she beheld half such variety on a breakfast table, made it impossible for her to forget for a moment she was a visitor. She felt utterly unworthy of such respect, and knew not how to reply to it. Her tranquillity was not improved by the general's impatience for the appearance of his eldest son, nor by the displeasure he expressed at his laziness when Captain Tilney at last came down. Are they at Northanger already? She was quite pained by the severity of his father's reproof, which seemed disproportionate to the offence, and much was her concern increased when she found herself the principal cause of the lecture, and that his tardiness was chiefly resented from being disrespectful to her. This was placing her in a very uncomfortable situation, and she felt great compassion for Captain Tilney, without being able to hope for his goodwill. He listened to his father in silence and attempted not any defense, which confirmed her in fearing that the inquietude of his mind on Isabella's account might, by keeping him long sleepless, have been the real cause of his rising late. It was the first time of her being decidedly in his company, and she had hoped to be now able to form her opinion of him. But she scarcely heard his voice while his father remained in the room, and even afterwards. So much were her spirits affected, she could distinguish nothing but these words in a whisper to Eleanor. "How glad I shall be when you are all off."
Interesting.
I don't know, I'm feeling weird. The bustle of going was not pleasant. The clock struck 10 while the trunks were carrying down, and the general had fixed to be out of Milson Street by that hour. His greatcoat, instead of being brought for him to put on directly, was spread out in the curricle in which he was to accompany his son. The middle seat of the chaise was not drawn out, though there were 3 people to go in, and his daughter's maid had so crowded it with parcels that Miss Morland would not have room to sit. And so much was he influenced by this apprehension when he handed her in, that she had some difficulty in saving her own new writing desk from being thrown out into the street. At last, however, the door was closed upon the 3 females, and they set off at the sober pace in which the handsome, highly fed 4 horses of a gentleman usually perform a journey of 30 miles. Such was the distance of Northanger from Bath, to be now divided into 2 equal stages. Catherine's spirits revived as they drove from the door, for with Miss Tilney she felt no restraint, and with the interest of a road entirely new to her, of an abbey before and a curricle behind, she caught the last view of Bath without any regret, and met with every milestone before she expected it. The tediousness of a 2 hours' bait at Petty France, in which there was nothing to be done but eat without being hungry and loiter about without anything to see, next followed. And her admiration, that's like me in the apartment all day. Eat without being hungry and loiter around. Where was I? Boop, boop. I lost my spot. Okay. And her admiration of the style in which they traveled, of the fashionable chaise and 4 postilions handsomely liveried, rising so regularly in their stirrups, and numerous outriders properly mounted, sank a little under this consequent inconvenience. Had their party been perfectly agreeable, the delay would have been nothing, but General Tilney, though so charming a man, seemed always a check upon his children's spirits, and scarcely anything was said but by himself, the observation of which, with his discontent at whatever the inn afforded, and his angry impatience at the waiters, made Catherine grow every moment more in awe of him, and appeared to lengthen the 2 hours into 4. At last, however, the order of release was given, and much was Catherine then surprised by the general's proposal of her taking his place in his son's curricle for the rest of the journey. The day was fine, and he was anxious for seeing as much of the country as possible. The remembrance of Mr. Allen's opinion respecting young men's open carriages made her blush at mention of such a plan, and her first thought was to decline it, but her second was of greater deference for General Tilney's judgment. He did not propose anything improper for her, and in the course of a few minutes she found herself with Henry in the curricle, as happy a being as ever existed. That's also what I'm hoping for romantically, and what I'm hoping for Catherine. I lost it. Dang. Okay, there we go. A very short trial convinced her that a curricle was the prettiest equipage, and I really hope that's how you pronounce it, but I don't think it is, in the world. The chaise and 4 wheeled off with some grandeur, to be sure, but it was a heavy and troublesome business, and she could not easily forget its having stopped 2 hours at Petty France. Half the time would have been enough for the curricle, and so nimbly were the light horses disposed to move that, had not the general chosen to have his own carriage lead the way, they could have passed it with ease in half a minute. But the merit of the curricle did not all belong to the horses. Henry drove so well, so quietly, without making any disturbance, without parading to her, or swearing at them, so different from the only gentleman coachman whom it was in her power to compare him with. And then his hat sat so well, and the innumerable capes of his greatcoat looked so becomingly important. To be driven by him, oh God, oh good God. Okay, words, okay. To be driven by him, next to being dancing with him, was certainly the greatest happiness in the world. In addition to every other delight, she had now that of listening to her own praise, of being thanked at least on his sister's account for her kindness in thus becoming her visitor, of hearing it ranked as real friendship and described as creating real gratitude. His sister, he said, was uncomfortably circumstanced. She had no female companion, and in the frequent absence of her father was sometimes without any companion at all. But how can that be? Said Catherine. Are you not with her? Northanger is not more than my half-home. I have an establishment of my own house in Woodston, which is nearly 20 miles from my father's, and some of my time is necessarily spent there. How sorry you must be for that. I'm always sorry to leave Eleanor. Yes, but besides your affection for her, you must be so fond of the Abbey. After being used to such a home as the Abbey, an ordinary parsonage house must be very disagreeable. He smiled and said, You have formed a very favorable idea of the Abbey. To be sure I have. Is it not a fine old place, just like what one reads? Is it Is it not a fine old place, just like what one reads about? And what are you prepared to encounter all the horrors that a building such as what one reads about are produced? Have you a stout heart? Nerves fit for sliding panels and tapestry? Oh, yes. I do not think I should be easily frightened, because there would be so many people in the house, and besides, it has never been uninhabited and left deserted for years, and then the family come back into it unawares without giving any notice, as generally happens. No, certainly. We shall not have to explore our way into a hall dimly lighted by the expiring embers of a wood fire, nor be obliged to spread our beds on the floor of a room without windows, doors, or furniture. But you may be aware that when a young lady is, by whatever means, introduced into a dwelling of this kind, she is always lodged apart from the rest of the family. While they snugly repair to their own end of the house, she is formally conducted by Dorothy, the ancient housekeeper, up a different staircase and along many gloomy passages into an apartment never used since some cousin or kin died in it about 20 years before. Can you stand such a ceremony at this? Will not your mind misgive you when you find yourself in this gloomy chamber, too lofty and extensive for you, with only the feeble rays of a single lamp to take in its size, its walls hung with tapestry exhibiting figures as large as life, and the bed of dark green stuff or purple velvet presenting even a funeral appearance? Will not your heart sink within you? Oh, but this will not happen to me, I am sure. How fearfully will you examine the furniture of your apartment, and what will you discern? Not tables, toilets, wardrobes, or drawers, but on one side perhaps the remains of a broken lute, on the other a ponderous chest which no efforts can open, and over the fire the portrait of some handsome warrior whose features will so incomprehensibly strike you that you will not be able to withdraw your eyes from it. Henry is just like going for it. He has clearly had this planned. Dorothy, meanwhile, no less struck by your appearance, gazes on you in great agitation and drops a few unintelligible hints. To raise your spirits, moreover, she gives you reason to suppose that the part of the Abbey you inhabit is undoubtedly haunted, and informs you that you will not have a single domestic within call. Yikes. Within this parting cordial, she curtsies off. You listen to the sound of her receding footsteps as long as the last echo can reach you, and when, with fainting spirits, you attempt to fasten your door, you will discover, with increased alarm, it has no lock. Oh, Mr. Tilney, how frightful! This is just like a book, but it cannot really happen to me. I am sure your housekeeper is not really Dorothy. Well, what then? Oh my God, is this improper? Is this allowed? Is this is like practically Victorian sexting? I'm just deeply uncomfortable. Nothing further to alarm perhaps may occur the first night. After surmounting your unconquerable horror of the bed, oh my God, you will retire to rest and get a few hours' unquiet slumber. But on the second, or farthest, the third night after your arrival, you will probably have a violent storm. Peals of thunder so loud as to seem to shake the edifice to its foundations will roll round the neighboring mountains. And during the frightful gusts of wind which accompany it, you will probably think you discern, for your lamp is not extinguished, one part of the hanging more violently agitated than the rest. Unable to course to repress your curiosity in so favorable a moment for indulging it, you will instantly arise, and throwing your dressing gown around you, proceed to examine this mystery. After a very short search, you will discover a division in the tapestry so artfully constructed as to defy the minutest inspection, and on opening it, a door will immediately appear, which door being only secured by massy bars and a padlock, you will, after a few efforts, succeed in opening. And with your lamp in your hand, you will pass into a small vaulted room. No, indeed, I should be too much frightened to do any such thing. What? Not when Dorothy has given you Oh my God, there's so much. Not when Dorothy has given you to understand that there is a secret subterraneous communication between your apartment and the chapel of St. Anthony, scarcely 2 miles off. Could you shrink from so simple an adventure? No, no, you will proceed into this small vaulted room, and through this into several others, without perceiving anything very remarkable in either. In one, perhaps, there may be a dagger. Is this a dagger I see before me? In another, a few drops of blood, and in a third, the remains of some instrument of torture. But there being nothing in all this out of the common way, and your lamp being nearly exhausted, I scared myself. Your lamp being nearly exhausted, you will return towards your own apartment. In repassing through the small vaulted room, however, your eyes will be attracted towards a large, old-fashioned cabinet of ebony and gold, which, through narrowly examining the furniture before you, you had passed unnoticed. Impelled by an irresistible presentiment, you will eagerly advance to it, unlock its folding doors, and search into every drawer, but for some time without discovering anything of importance. Perhaps nothing but a considerable hoard of diamonds. At last, however, by touching a secret spring and an inner compartment will open, a roll of paper appears. You seize it. It contains many sheets of manuscript. You hasten with the precious treasure into your own chamber, but scarcely have you been able to decipher it. O thou, whomsoever thou mayst be, into whose hands these memoirs of the wretched Matilda may fall, when your lamp suddenly expires in the socket and leaves you in total darkness. Oh, no, no, do not say so. Well, go on. Oh my God. She's having way too much fun with this. But Henry was too amused by the interest he had raised to be able to carry it farther. He could no longer command solemnity either of subject or voice, and was obliged to entreat her to use her own fancy in the perusal of Matilda's woes. Catherine, recollecting herself, grew ashamed of her eagerness, and began earnestly to assure him that her attention had been fixed without the smallest apprehension of really meeting what he related. Miss Tilney, she was sure, would never put her into such a chamber as he had described. She was not at all afraid. As they drew near the end of their journey, her impatience for a sight of the Abbey, for some time suspended by his conversation on subjects very different, returned in full force, and every bend in the road was expected with solemn awe to afford a glimpse of its massy walls of grey stone, rising amidst a grove of ancient oaks, with the last beams of the sun playing in beautiful splendor on its high Gothic windows. But so low did the building stand that she found herself passing through the great gates of the lodge into the very grounds of Northanger without having discerned even an antique chimney. She knew not that she had any right to be surprised, but there was a something in this mode of approach which she certainly had not expected. To pass between lodges of a modern appearance, to find herself with such ease in the very precincts of the Abbey, and driven so rapidly along a smooth, level road of fine gravel without obstacle, alarm, or solemnity of any kind, struck her as odd and inconsistent. She was not long at leisure, however, for such considerations. A sudden scud of rain driving full in her face made it impossible for her to observe anything further, and fixed all her thoughts on the welfare of her new straw bonnet. And she was actually under the Abbey walls, was springing, with Henry's assistance from the carriage, was beneath the shelter of the old porch, and had even passed onto the hall, where her friend and the general were waiting to welcome her, without feeling one awful foreboding of future misery to herself, or one moment's suspicion of any past scenes of horror being acted within the solemn edifice. The breeze had not seemed to waft the sighs of the murdered to her. It had been wafted nothing worse than a thick mizzling rain, and having given a good shake to her habit, she was ready to be shown into the common drawing-room, and capable of considering where she was. An abbey. Yes, it was delightful to really be in an abbey. But she doubted as she looked round the room whether anything within her observation would have given her the consciousness. The furniture was all in profusion and elegance of modern taste. The fireplace, where she had expected the ample width and ponderous carving of former times, was contracted to a Rumford with slabs of plain though handsome marble, and ornaments over it of the prettiest English china. The windows, to which she looked with peculiar dependence, from having heard the general talk of his preserving them in their Gothic form with reverential care, were yet less than what her fancy had betrayed. To be sure, the pointed arch was preserved, the form of them was Gothic, they might even be casements, but every pane was so large, so clear, so light. To an imagination which had hoped for the smallest divisions and the heaviest stonework, for painted glass, dirt, and cobwebs, the difference was very distressing. The general, perceiving how her eye was employed, began to talk of the smallness of the room and the simplicity of the furniture, where everything was being for daily use, pretended only to comfort, and flattering himself, however, that there were some apartments in the Abbey not unworthy her notice, and was proceeding to mention the costly gilding of one in particular, when taking out his watch, he stopped short to proclaim it with surprise within 20 minutes of 5. This seemed the word of separation, and Catherine found herself hurried away by Miss Tilney in such a manner as convinced her that the strictest punctuality to the family hours would be expected at Northanger. Returning to the large and lofty hall, they ascended a broad staircase of shining oak, which, after many flights and many landing places, brought them upon a long, wide gallery. On one side it had a range of doors, and it was lighted on the other by windows in which Catherine had only time to discover looked out into a quadrangle before Miss Tilney had led the way into a chamber, and scarcely staying to hope that she would find it comfortable, left her with an anxious entreaty that she would make as little alteration as possible in her dress. And that is the end of that chapter. What a time to be alive. What a time to be Henry Tilney. Frightening young woman. Oh, excuse me. All right. Well, that was a fun chapter. And Shiv, I'm very glad that you were here to enjoy it with me. I'm really like of many minds about it. I think either nothing is going to happen or something is going to happen. I'm really hoping for something versus nothing. Maybe it's going to turn out that just all the Tilney men are bad, and I'm thinking that's kind of what it is. I still think Eleanor Tilney is okay. She's a baby. I mean, I think she's a baby. I feel like she's probably like 14 or 15. I don't think she's 17 like Catherine is. But who knows? Not me. I want her to be, she feels baby to me. Yeah. So that's my analysis of Northanger Abbey for today. I really like Catherine's character. I think like Elizabeth Bennet doesn't take any like shit. She like, but she also like knows that she's like when she's being bullshitted, and she'll play with them. But like Catherine like doesn't really know that she's being bullshitted, and yet manages to have the perfect response every time to just like the healthiest like non-toxic response every time when she's being like bullshitted. She's just like, what? No, like I would never do that. Why are you saying that? And it's really affirming. Like I don't recall having read a character of like such strong accidental convictions before, and I really enjoy it. I think it's great. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Okay, with that, I will sign off for today. I'm gonna go cook myself up something. I don't know. It's going to be a frozen meal, and I have 3 right now, and I'm very excited and passionate about all of them. I'm leaning towards pad thai though. Okay, with that, I will leave now for real. Today is Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, so I will see you. No, I think we're good. Maybe. We'll see. I can't remember. I scheduled something with my friend at some point from 4 to 6, and I don't know if I need to leave before 3. I don't know if it's tomorrow or Saturday. I think it's Saturday. Let's look. Okay.
Okay, we're good. It's Saturday. All right. I will see you all later. Thanks for tuning in. Go eat some lunch, or if you haven't eaten lunch yet, and if you have eaten lunch, go get a snack. Snacks are great. Okay, thank you and goodbye.